Pedro Alonso López, known as the Monster of the Andes, is one of the most prolific serial killers in history, yet his case remains one of the most disturbing examples of how systemic failures can allow such individuals to operate undetected for years. Born in Colombia in 1948, Lopez's early life was marred by abuse, poverty, and abandonment, factors that likely contributed to his monstrous transformation. But the true horror began when he started targeting young girls across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. Authorities believe he may have murdered more than 300 children, with Lopez himself confessing to over 110 murders in Ecuador alone. One of the main reasons Lopez remained free for so long was the lack of cooperation between countries in South America at the time. Lopez operated across borders, committing heinous acts in one country before moving on to the next. During the 1970s and 1980s, there was very little communication or collaboration between law enforcement agencies in Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. This made it extremely difficult to track a serial offender whose crimes spanned multiple jurisdictions. Each country saw the disappearances as isolated incidents, failing to piece together the horrifying pattern until it was too late. Another critical factor was Lopez's choice of victims. He targeted young girls from poor, indigenous, and rural communities, victims who were often overlooked by society and whose disappearances were either ignored or not thoroughly investigated. These communities frequently lacked access to proper legal channels, and local authorities often failed to take missing persons reports seriously. The girls Lopez preyed upon were often treated as disposable by the system, allowing him to continue killing without raising suspicion for years. In addition to these systemic issues, forensic and investigative tools at the time were rudimentary at best, especially in rural areas of South America. There were no national databases, no advanced DNA analysis, and no psychological profiling being done in those regions. Most missing children were never found, and even when remains were discovered, they were rarely identified or linked to a larger investigation. This lack of technology and investigative strategy gave Lopez a huge advantage and allowed him to slip through the cracks repeatedly. Lopez was finally arrested in Ecuador in 1980 when he was caught trying to lure another young girl. It was only after intense questioning and a chilling confession that authorities realized the scope of his crimes. He eventually led police to mass graves containing dozens of bodies. However, the justice system once again failed to deliver true accountability. He was convicted of 110 murders, but sentenced to only 16 years in prison, the maximum sentence under Ecuadorian law at the time. Shockingly, Lopez was released after just 14 years for good behavior. Following his release in 1994, Lopez was deported to Colombia. There, instead of being prosecuted for his crimes in his home country, he was placed in a psychiatric facility. Just 4 years later, in 1998, he was declared sane by Colombian authorities and released on $50 bail. He then disappeared without a trace. Since then, his whereabouts have been unknown. Interpol has issued a warrant for his arrest, but he has never been found. Some speculate he may have changed his identity or fled to another country. Others fear he may have continued killing under the radar. The case of Pedro López is a chilling reminder of the failures of international law enforcement, the vulnerabilities of marginalized communities, and the dangers of a broken criminal justice system. His ability to vanish into thin air after committing such unspeakable atrocities raises serious questions about how many other predators might be slipping through the cracks in similar ways. Lopez was not caught earlier and remains unaccounted for today because of a terrifying combination of jurisdictional gaps, social neglect, weak sentencing laws, and outdated investigative tools. And unless he's dead, one of the most dangerous serial killers in history may still be out there.